Hello, everyone. Nika here with your daily neuro nugget. Happy Monday. I hope you had a marvelous and safe Independence Day. And as promised, I am back here to talk about very important correlations, very important theories regarding Kohberger, regarding Brent Kopaka, which is the name we have heard quite a bit, right? And regarding Steve Gonsalves. So before we go on, remember to say hello in the chat. And eventually I will try to catch up in the chat, but I want to get the information out of the way. That being said, people are very angry because they don't want us to talk about Mr. Kohberger anymore. They said, look, Kohberger has taken the plea deal. He has admitted to unaliving 4 people plus a count of burglary. Leave it alone. But you have to understand that relatively 1 to 5% of people that are incarcerated are innocent people. And I know, sure, we're a great country, but we can do so much better. When you think about the numbers, 5% of people, according to ChatGPT, that are incarcerated are innocent, and that is about 60,000 people. 60000. So that's a big number, right? Now let's get to talking about Kohberger, Steve, and Kopacka, right? We have heard Judge mention Brent Kopaka since the very early days, right? He very quickly retracted it during one of Mr. Kohberger's hearings. And then in one of the most recent hearings, we hear Kopacka being mentioned by Ann Taylor. And it's like, okay, we're going 3 years into this IDAHO4 case, and people are still throwing Brent Kopacka's name out there. And I want to delve deep because we know that Brent Kopaka, like myself, like many of you guys out there as well, are veterans. He was a veteran, not only just a regular veteran like myself, but he was actually a Purple Heart veteran. If you know anything about the military, is that to get a Purple Heart, you basically have to be like the top of the food chain in the military, right? They don't just hand out Purple Hearts like candy. So there was a very recent interview where Steve is mentioning Kopacka indirectly, in my opinion. These are my opinions, my theories, my conspiracies. You can agree to disagree, but if you're going to disagree, do so in a respectful manner, right? And he's referring to somebody wanting to pin the IDAHO4 on a vet. He's talking about Kopacka, right? Now, what does Kopacka have to do with all of this? Now, there were early day rumors that Kopacka and Brian used to know each other. Now, this has never been confirmed, but they're both from the same area in PA, which is a little bit odd, right? That you have 2 guys from PA, both kind of have a military-ish background. We know that Mr. Kohberger was not in the military, but he wanted to be. And Kopacka, right? Now, if you guys remember what was done to Kopacka, it was a horrible thing. I hope nobody ever has to experience that, especially somebody who's dedicated their life to serving, right? We know that he was allegedly swatted and deleted by cops, like deleted off the planet, right? And it's also very odd because we've all seen the footage of Kopacka where he looks very afraid and he's panicking, and some people have speculated that yes, he was on illicit substances, but in that video he doesn't come across as dangerous, whether he was on illicit substances or not, or whether he was just panicking, right? And then suddenly the cops delete him off the planet, and they also magically delete the footage, right? Because we only have so much footage of the day when the swatting took place. Now, it was also said in the very early days that Brent Kopaka and Chief Fry talked on the phone very often. And that is concerning to me because every time that I look at any sort of odd case that has taken place in Moscow, Chief Fry pops up. And now we know Chief Fry is getting a promotion, right? And Chief Fry was allegedly also one of the first people to discover what was the boy's name that was found, that basically drowned in like an inch of water, you know, the frat boy. Please let me know if you remember his name. It's just out of my mind right now. And Chief Fry is a suspicious individual, in my opinion, right? So why would there be any need for Kopacka and Chief Fry to talk on the phone often? That alone is really weird. Why are you keeping in touch on the phone, talking on the phone with Kopacka? That's very strange. Unless, of course, there is potentially a possibility of the rumor being true that Kopacka was maybe, or is still maybe, a CI, right? And what was very strange about when Kopacka was swatted and when he was deleted off the planet by Moscow law enforcement is that his phone was also said to have been factory reset after the SWAT, right? And the implication here is that law enforcement reset his phone. For what purposes would that be? I don't know, but I think that is very strange, especially if the rumors are true that him and Chief Fry talked often on the phone, right? Now, some people have also mentioned that Kopacka had Brent Kopaka in his phone saved as a contact. And what's strange is that Molly Meth, you guys know, the DoorDash driver, also said that Fry spoke with her a lot too, right? We hear that in the video. Why is Chief Fry talking to all of these people, speaking to all of these people on the phone? Again, I cannot confirm or verify if Mr. Kopaka did have any issues regarding illicit substances, but is Chief Fry using this to maybe his advantage? We don't know, right? Now, when we see the footage of Molly, she seems very, very nervous, almost too nervous, right? And is it possible that she feels like she's forced to cooperate? Because we know when Chief Fry or any other person in law enforcement has a lot of information about you, especially if you are utilizing illicit substances, well, that information can be used against you, whether you are a CI or not. And what happens a lot of times is that they are basically forcing / blackmailing a lot of these people to cooperate, right? So it's just something to keep in mind. Now, the connections, right? What's also suspicious as fudge to me is that the woman cop that showed up to the hotel for Kopacka is the same cop that stopped Brent Kopaka at the red light incident. And for people who are very close-minded, they're gonna say, well, Nika, this is a small town, okay? There's only so many officers. This is not that small of a town. I've lived in Delphi, Indiana, of all places, right? Moscow is not that small. There's what, 25,000 people, I believe, maybe more. It's just strange that here we have the same cop stopping Brent Kopaka at the red light incident, and then also is the same cop showing up at the hotel for Kopacka. And it's also the same cop that showed up for Molly, the DoorDash driver, back in her stop in 2023's DUI. Okay, this is really weird. And for people who are just pretending that this is another one of, I don't know, 500 coincidences, yeah, I don't know. Now, in the footage we have seen of Mr. Kopaka, he continues to talk over and over again about somebody threatening his life, right? And what's odd is that when we go back to that body cam footage of Kopacka's room, what do we see here? Is this a missing link? What do we see? Do you guys remember? Again, I had to go, and I advise everybody to go and watch, please go watch all of the older videos I've made 2.5 years ago regarding Mr. Kopaka, because there's a lot that going back maybe we have missed, right? And we see his knife collection. So if Brent Kopaka maybe did know Mr. Kopaka in any way, shape, or form, is it possible that they hung out? Is it possible that Brent could have been over to Kopacka's place? Is it possible that maybe Brent was touching the knives while he was visiting Kopacka? And I want to know, where did all of the knives go after Kopacka was deleted by the cops? Because one would assume that they maybe would have been returned to the parents, but again, I don't trust Moscow Police Department, and I don't trust Pullman PD either, because a lot of families, for example, in the IDAHO4 case, have said that they have still not received a lot of the things that they should have received, like Ethan's golf clubs, right? Or the phones of some of the victims. So where did the knives go after Kopacka was deleted by the cops? Is it possible that Brent and Brian knew something? Now, I know a lot of people are going to misinterpret this video and going to twist my words as they usually do, but hopefully not you, because hopefully you're smarter than, most people. I'm not making this video to turn this and say Mr. Kopacka committed this crime. I know, yes, of course, there is a possibility, but there is no evidence, just like there is not enough evidence to say that it was Mr. Kohberger. So I'm not going to turn this video and go in that direction, especially because for me as a veteran, I personally don't think that a purple-hearted veteran could do this. I know that it happens. I know that veterans do suffer from PTSD. Now, what's very strange, before I forget, is that in Kopacka's obituary, they continue to talk about, oh, he had PTSD, blah, blah, blah. What does that have to do with him passing away? Bro, you deleted him. Stop blaming it on his PTSD. They often will do this a lot to military members, right? They'll make it look like it was a military problem. Maybe it was just the Pullman and Moscow Police Department problem, right? Unaliving people left and right, possibly. We don't know. Now, I don't know exactly what type of work Kopacka did while he was in the military. Yes, he was overseas. Yes, he had been deployed. Yes, he had a Purple Heart. But sometimes when we are in the military, we're not allowed to really tell people what we do. We may tell you, oh, we were medical. Or yeah, we went to Spain, or we went to Italy, but we're never gonna necessarily tell you all of the details, nor are we always allowed to. I've had 100+ people reach out to me on Instagram and ask me about my military past, which honestly, I'm not going to answer those questions because, again, we don't know. So I don't really know. Only Brent Kopaka and the people that were working around him at the time know what type of work he was doing. But a lot of people that are in the military end up doing a lot of undercover law enforcement, working for SCIs or federal agents or whatever, right? Sometimes it just happens to be part of the job. So is it possible that Brent and Brian, because Brian also has a past of wanting to be in the military, we know that he wanted to join the FBI, that they've maybe found something out about the dirty deeds of Moscow or Pullman law enforcement. Again, when you have corruption, especially the type of corruption we are talking about in that area where it's massive, where almost everyone's moms and dads and school teachers are involved because they're either trafficking people or illicit substances or whatever. When you have that type of crime happening all over the state, for it to actually take place, you also need criminals within law enforcement, right? Without criminals, without crooked cops, this type of crime would not happen. So we know, just the fact alone that this type of crime is happening on the daily in that area, we know by that fact alone that there are most definitely crooked cops in Moscow, in Pullman area, right? So it's a theory that has been mentioned several times. Could they have found something out? And from what we've heard about Brian Kohberger's family and Brian Kohberger himself, is that he is a very religious person. And from my experience, a lot of people that are highly religious, not everybody, but a lot of people, usually will do the right thing. If they see something wrong, or if they find out that there are crooked cops, helping in trafficking humans and trafficking illicit substances, they're probably gonna want to stand up and do the right thing without always realizing that this can come and bite you in the ass later. This can be dangerous to yourself, to your family members, to your brothers, sisters, dad, mom, because they want to do the right thing, right? Now, we also know that Mr. Steve's brother, Gonzo, he's been in prison, right? And it's not a good thing. I believe he unalived an Aryan Brotherhood gang member, and that's why he was in there. But why did Steve say that he knew when Brian's dad booked his flight? Did you guys watch that? After Kohberger accepted the plea deal, Steve is ranting yet again. This is what he does, so we can't believe everything he says. We have to take everything he says with a grain of salt. When we have Steve out there in the open saying he knew when Brian's dad booked his flight, okay, to me, that sounds like one, either somebody's leaking information to him, or two, he's stalking the family, which then could make us wonder, is it possible that Mr. Steve G could have threatened the Kohberger family? Again, we know that Steve Gonsalves, his ties, when you delve deep, in my opinion, they are dark, they are sinister, they are wicked. But that's just my opinion, right? Now, allegedly, Mr. Kopacka lost his driver's license over DUI, and early rumors mentioned that he would sometimes get rides to VA Alcoholic Anonymous meetings from Mr. Brent Kopaka. Again, these were very early day rumors. They were never proven to be right, but it's just interesting, right? We should just keep tabs of all the information that was out there. Now, I know people are going to say, look, if you don't think that Brian did this crime and you don't think that Brent did this crime, then who did this crime, right? Well, remember, there were 4 other sources of DNA at the crime scene that Judge Hippler refused. He just refused to allow in the courtroom. How do people sleep at night with this? This is very concerning to me. Again, if you were being accused, if you or a family member was being accused of unaliving 4 people, and you know in your heart that you did not do it, and there were 4 other sources of DNA found at the freaking crime scene, how would you feel if the judge was like, no, we're just gonna take your DNA and just go with that theory. We don't want to test anything else. We definitely are not going to allow anything else in court because it'll just confuse the jury. We don't want to do that, right? And people also forget that if Mr. Kohberger actually committed the homicide, then we still have to explain the weird behavior of Bethany, of Dylan, and other friends, including Emily, who was giddy in an interview. Have people forgotten these interviews? Again, I know we are 2.5 years in, but we can't just pretend that this stuff didn't happen, right? She was literally giddy, saying in an interview that post-crime, she spoke with Dylan on the phone and that they were joking back and forth. Now, again, for people who were saying that Dylan was so scared that we should not pick on the roommates, that they are innocent, perfect angels. Well, how do you explain that? Again, that interview was when Hunter and Emily, like right after the crime took place, and they're literally giddy in the interview. That does not sit well with me. Their body language does not sit well with me. And also, remember when they asked Hunter's girlfriend if she felt that there was going to be justice? What did she do? What was her bodily reaction? She literally just smirked and giggled and said, I don't think there's ever going to be any justice. I don't think there's ever going to be any justice, right? How does that sit well with so many people is beyond me. But the point of all of the videos that I've made is, again, I don't know if Brian did this. I don't know if Brent did this. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there, babe. I wasn't there. My point of creating all of these videos for you guys is our constitutional rights, right? Again, when we put ourselves in the shoes of these people, when we have a judge who is not allowing other sources of DNA at the crime scene to be allowed in the courtroom, is very concerning. Because let's just pretend for a second that maybe, just maybe, Brian did commit this crime and maybe other people helped him, right? Because that is not that far-fetched. And if so, shouldn't we be holding all people accountable? We should, right? That being said, because again, I know people will twist my words. I don't think, as of yet, until I'm shown enough evidence, that Kopacka or Kohberger committed this crime. And what made my opinion, would just reinforce my belief that these two are probably not involved at all, is the reaction that we saw, right? When we looked in that last hearing, when we saw Bill Thompson lying to our faces, like as if we are idiots, like as if we have not read every single legal document, saying the roommates were asleep. Like, are we just gonna pretend that we didn't read any of those documents? Are we just gonna pretend that Dylan was not at the ATM? Are we just gonna pretend that Dylan and Bethany were not awake the whole time? Are we just gonna pretend that they were not on Yik Yak, on TikTok, on social media? Are we just gonna pretend that they were not taking pictures, editing images, deleting files? I didn't make that up, right? It's in the legal documents. We can't just throw all of that information out of the window, right? Hello, Skolma. Hi, Jody. Hi, Nadine. Hello, Helen. Hi, Amma. Hi, Linda and Valerie. Hello, Michael, Robert, Dom, Big Pencil City. How are you guys doing today? And Suds, hello. Yes, that's very suspicious to me. I always tell people, make sure, of course, to look up the laws of your state and your country. But every interaction that I always have with law enforcement, I say, you need to turn on this. Like, if you're talking to me, babe, you need to turn on the cameras. Why are you harassing me for my phone number? And your cameras are not on, right? And depending on your state, I suggest that if it's allowed in your state, you also record. Because like Sud says, we've seen so many times with Moscow and Pullman PD that magically the body cam and traffic cams stop working. That's really weird. Hudson, yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. Thank you, guys. And how many people have been arrested and suddenly released? And the only thing that I can think of people being arrested and suddenly released is if they're giving up more information, right? They should be giving up more information. Usually if you snitch, you get some charges or the majority of your charges dropped. But otherwise, I mean, they should be holding these people like Emily, right? Or Emma Bailey, I mean. Why did they release her? She should be like in prison for like her entire life. The only reason they released her is probably because she's giving more information, right? Wolf Angel, hello Jody. Wolf Angel says, I believe when they came out with the DoorDash driver and YouTubers were able to get the footage off of that, they knew they were done. That's why the plea is somewhat to do with it. Well, if the DoorDash driver was actually there, then show us the footage, right? If she's saying that she was parked right next to Brian Kohberger, then her vehicle should be seen in the footage. And it should be seen right next to Brian's car, but Becky says maybe Kopacka and Kohberger knew someone or something that they did and had information. Thank you, AKW. Hi, David. Roger says, tenants never heard screaming, throwing from Kopacka, including on law enforcement body cams, was nothing, right? Ken says, I think SG has friends in law enforcement. I think SG has friends in all kinds of places. Law enforcement, probably politics, and probably in jail as well. Let me know, How do you guys feel about the judge refusing the 4 unknown DNA? Because seizure-free girl does not agree, right? And I don't either. Stone says, I doubt the gag order will ever be lifted. It's also Brian's right to plea. That's right. I don't see how they cannot be held accountable for not calling the police, because when they were on the 911 call, they tried telling them about 4 in the morning as if it was an emergency. Yeah. Why did they delete Brent is a puzzle. That is the puzzle we have to solve, because Brent was literally doing nothing. When we have seen the footage, have you guys seen the footage of Brent Kopaka, by the way? It's sickening, okay? He is at no point aggressive. He is at no point angry. He is at no point threatening anybody. If anything, he's having a meltdown, like panicking. He's like balled up in a corner. No reason that they should have unalived him, right? And then we hear that he talks to Fry all the time. And then we hear that Fry also talks to Molly Meth all the time. Why is Fry calling everybody and their mama? Thank you so much. $5. I appreciate it, Raphael Penguin. Thank you so much. He says if a camera's 50 feet away. Oh, I missed it. Let's see if I can pull it up. If a camera's 50 feet away, you can pick up Xana's room when there is no way Dylan and Bethany didn't hear anything, right? And what's crazy to me is that people still defend them, right? These are not young girls. These are not toddlers. We've even seen cases, incidences where toddlers, literally 3-year-olds, will pick up the phone and say, please send somebody, there's an emergency. But we're supposed to believe that these grown-ass women who were on social media, taking pictures, deleting images, deleting files, altering things, FaceTiming their parents, calling their parents, we're supposed to believe they didn't hear anything? It doesn't make any sense, right? David says, do you think BK will speak at sentencing? I don't think so. It'd be quite shocking if he did, right? And look, again, so many people misconstrue my words. Maybe he did do it. But if he did, which again, I doubt, we don't have enough evidence. I want to see the evidence. I want him to tell me, how did you dispose of the weapon? How did you commit this crime so quickly, right? Stone says, I was arrested and suddenly released because the man gave him false information. No, Ken, I agree with you. Law enforcement should most definitely not be allowed to turn off or mute body cams, period. And I actually read an article. There are some states that are creating these uniforms that as soon as the cop starts moving, as soon as there's any movement, it immediately automatically starts recording, which is great because it also does not allow the cops to shut the cameras off, and it shouldn't. It should not, right? Unless maybe they're going to the bathroom, because that is for the safety of the citizens, and it's also for the safety of the officers, right? Because if you're an officer and you are a law-abiding officer, you're doing the right thing, you're upholding the law, there's no need to turn the camera off unless what you're doing is fucked up, right? And unfortunately, there are a lot of corrupt law enforcement officers, a lot of corrupt agents. That doesn't mean they're all bad, right? Christos Sarantos, why would he take a plea if he did not do it? I mean, at some point, if you realize it's either a plea or the death penalty, firing squad, and you see that the judge is so biased, you see that the judge is rolling his eyes, you see that the judge isn't allowing other sources of unknown male DNA that were found at the crime scene, like, that is as biased as it gets, babe. Like, it would almost be stupid to not take the plea deal. Now you're betting your life and praying to God that one juror will have some common sense. And as I've said before, statistically, the IQ of Americans is dropping quite dramatically. So unless you are that, uh, unless you're that positive, that you're a positive thinker, and you're hoping that one of them will do the right thing, it might just be better to take the plea deal. So Stone says these are young adults and they should have some sort of reasoning. You would think, right? But again, when we understand psychology and we understand bias, we learn that people don't ever blame cute women for doing anything wrong, right? You're young, you're blonde, you're beautiful. People are like, they could never. And I'm not saying they did, but it's most definitely possible. By the way, I'm not really a person to be right on top of the news all the time, but if you guys have not watched, there were 4 little 8-year-old girls that were planning to unalive an 8-year-old little boy. Like, they were plotting, these girls were plotting how to get away with it. One was going to bring a knife from home, wear gloves, this and that. One was going to shank him at recess. Like, these are 8-year-old girls. If you don't think that women in their 20s could be capable of something horrific, I don't know, like, you're living under a cave. You're living under a rock, right? So, Stone, body cams need to be streamed. Yes, that is a great idea. No tampering. It's our public record, right? And again, that's for our own safety, right? And the safety of our children. Remember, Rich, buddy, a lot of people have actually taken, several people have actually taken a plea in a murder trial for life if they are innocent. It happens a lot, right? I recommend you go look at the Innocence Project. And remember, just because he said that or the lawyer said they can't appeal, he can still appeal. I talked about this in three live streams ago. There are still loopholes where people can appeal. So exactly, Stone. When you see the judge amending the PCA, when you see that your due process is being trampled on in every corner, why the fuck wouldn't you take a plea deal? Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate people who have common sense, right? Oh, yes, that's right, Jada. The Slenderman girls that tried to unalive their friend, they were like 13, right? So it's actually quite common. And as I've mentioned this before, bias gets in the way. When we see pretty girls, oh my God, they're so cute. They're sorority girls. They would never, they're college girls. But I know damn well, and you guys know damn well too, that if this whole situation would be exactly the same, except Dylan was a man and Bethany was, I don't know, let's pretend there were 2 dudes in the house instead. They would have been questioned immediately. They would have been taken to the jail immediately. They would be incarcerated in this moment. Why? Because when we are looking at criminal cases, criminal profiling, the first people to be suspected are the people that are at the crime scene. They're the people that were supposedly awake the whole time and didn't see anything, right? If this was 2 men, trust me, they would have been in jail since day one, right? So thank you guys so much for joining me in today's lives. I plan to make more videos. Again, I'm still trying to pull up a lot of the old information regarding Brent Kopaka. I just think there's something there. I don't think Kopacka did anything bad, but I think there's something there. So give me some time to pull up all of the old information, and yeah, I'll get back to you guys soon. If you think that Kopacka has anything to do in this case, the IDAHO4, please leave a 1. If you think this is just a far-fetched theory, please leave a 2. So thank you guys for joining me. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye. Also, check out my shirt. It's on backwards. I'm sure you noticed. I used to be the command fitness leader at the naval base. So yeah, I'm gonna go get my sprints in, guys. Take care.